I was one of those persons. Thank you. I was one of those persons. And so now that I know the benefits of sunlight, I am not afraid to take my walks. And I live in the island of Jamaica. I live in the island of Jamaica. So even this morning I went out and I would hang some clothes and I would get my sunlight. Not the hot one that you should get, but I got some nonetheless. Let us pray to start. Gracious Father and our God which art in heaven, we truly want to thank you for the privilege, for this opportunity, Lord, to educate your people concerning your laws of health. We ask in the name of Jesus that those who need to be online will come online before this program ends, because your people need to become very knowledgeable, Lord, in disease, prevention, its causes, and its cure. And this is a starting point, mighty God. So we ask that your Holy Spirit will touch them and bring them online. I pray that those who will be watching by YouTube will be blessed by this presentation, and that you alone will get the glory, the honor, and the full control now, Lord, and beat back every dark force around us, remove every distraction, so that your children can get benefit of this presentation. Thank you for hearing and thank you for answering. Is our prayers with thanks in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to ask that you ensure that your mics are muted. So let's go. Sunlight. So we have a disclaimer from the Table of Christ Health Ministries, and it states, the health information in these lectures are for general education and is not intended to substitute for any medical advice. No medical diagnosis or medical or cure or treatment is provided. So we're just giving you information, my brothers and my sisters, but information that, if adhered to, can save lives. Everything that conflicts with natural law creates a disease condition of the soul. And this is taken from the Review and Herald, January 25th, 1881. In the preparation of a people for the Lord's second coming, a great work is to be accomplished through the promulgation of health principles in preparation for the Lord's second coming. We have a great work to do in sounding loud the health principles, in shouting it. And my sisters and my brothers, I don't know if you haven't noticed, but all around us are sick people. Even in my very family, we're being touched with illnesses. And so every opportunity we get, we should share the health messages. Listen, you can only talk. You can only tell them, you can only share with them. It is up to them to take the advice and to follow the principles. The people are to be instructed in regard to the needs of the physical organism and the value of healthful living as taught in the scriptures, that the bodies which God has created may be presented to him a living sacrifice, fitted to render him acceptable service. When we're sick, we can't praise God well. And here is a definition of disease. And every medical missionary knows this by now, that disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from the violation of the laws of health. What are the laws of health? Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. And the servant of the Lord said, these are the true remedies. I believe they're so simple, so a lot of people don't understand that these are truly the true remedies. And then there's cleanliness and purity of life, which were added to the laws of health as well. So we have now 10 laws of health. Sick people need to be exposed to the direct rays of the sun. then they will begin to show color, health, and strength. I don't know if you're familiar with this saying, but when I was a young girl growing up, they always say you go old till them sun you. And then you would see them sunning older folks, not knowing that the sunlight was one of God's health principles. So sick people need to be exposed to the direct rays of the sun. Then they will begin to show color, health, and strength. And I'm going to give you a little testimony here. My mother was sick the other day for a little while. And I say for a little while. She was in the hospital for a week. And we took her out of the hospital. We took her out, yes, because she wasn't doing well in the hospital. She wasn't doing well in the hospital. But when we took her home, we would put her outside. I remember we took her home the Thursday. And by the Sabbath, I said, come, we're going downstairs. We're going outside in the sunlight. And I put her out in the sun. And she had her breakfast out there. And she sat out there for a little while until I thought she had enough sun. I said, come, let's go in. And when my husband was here, he would put her out there in the sun for me as well. And I will tell you this, we applied the health principles. Today, my mother is walking up those steps by herself, and to God be the glory. And when she was in the hospital, she was kind of swelling up because they were giving her a lot of fluids and not feeding her. And yes. And so I think that not feeding her was a part of her treatment, but it just, something wasn't working. But we took her home and we put her in the sun. We applied our health principles. And one of the things that I have been doing with her is I rub her back every night, because when she fell, she hit her side and her back. And I can tell you this, she is on her way to recovery. And so I can testify that sick people need to be exposed to the direct rays of the sun. Then they will begin to show color, health, and strength. Sunlight would give life and strength to the emaciated. Sunlight, this is one of nature's healing agents. And, sometimes you have to have your own experiences. I can tell you this, but if you're not getting your sun bath, you won't understand. So if you're living where you can get the sun, and I know in most countries now, winter gone, we're in spring, try to get the sun. And if you're not able to get the sun, make sure you supplement, because vitamin D enhances muscle mass and muscle strength, even the heart muscle. So the question is asked, is vitamin D a hormone? The answer, vitamin D is a hormone the kidney produce that controls blood calcium concentration and impacts the immune system. That's how important vitamin D is. It is also known as calcitriol or ergocalciferol, calcidiol, or cholecalciferol. Of those, calcidiol is the form doctors most commonly focus on when measuring vitamin D levels in the blood. Often misunderstood, vitamin D is not a vitamin. It is a prohormone. And prohormones are substances that the body converts to hormone. Vitamin D is a steroid hormone that stimulates the vitamin D receptors that is in the nucleus of the cell that regulate what we know now to be at least 2,000 human genes in a wide variety of tissues, all of which helps to maintain normal body physiology. That's how important vitamin D is. So after today, nobody walks in the sun with an umbrella. Walk freely in the sun. In fact, unlike other vitamins, only about 10% of the vitamin D the body needs come from food. And the rest the body makes for itself. Isn't God a good God? The body makes vitamin D in a chemical reaction that occurs when sunlight hits the skin. This reaction produces cholecalciferol, and the liver converts it to calcidiol. The kidneys then convert the substance to caltriol, which is the active form of the hormone in the body. I'm going to ask that you mute your microphone. When you come on, just check, make sure you're muted. Thank you. Pre-vitamin D is carried to the liver and undergo a process of hydrolyzation from the liver. Then it gets to the kidney that activates it into a substance to form the active vitamin D, which is 1-25 hydroxy vitamin. I'm going to ask my co-host to just be vigilant as persons come in and just mute them. Thank you. Sunlight and or immune system. Sunlight, when it comes to building your immune system, getting outdoors and enjoying a healthy amount of sunlight are two of our leading allies. Think of it as nature's nurture. Nature's nurture. The sun is God's doctor, which brings health and strength, purifying and giving color to the blood. And we must have it. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. When we did our medical missionary training, we learned that one of our naturopathic doctors here in Jamaica, when she had her regular 9-to-5 job, and like most of us, we would leave very early in the morning because we have to beat the traffic, especially if you live in Portmore, Spanish Town, or some of those Old Harbour. If you live or in Kitson Town or those fireplaces, you know you have to leave at the crack of dawn, like 5:30, to avoid the traffic. And a lot of people, when going home, they would wait until the traffic run off. So they won't get out of the office until about 6:30. Now, notice the times that I just told you. 5 o'clock is still dark, it's still night. And 6:30 is evening, is night. So she wouldn't get any sunlight. And like most of us, we who think that the sun is bad because we're going to get skin cancer, because that's what we were told, we avoided the sun like the plague. So she avoided the sun as well. And so she started getting sick. And when she got sick, she said she was almost at the point, almost to death, because nobody knew what was happening in her body. And then she met another naturopathic specialist who came to Jamaica on I'm not calling their names because I didn't ask for permission to tell the story, but I'm telling the story anyway. And when he came and she was told about him, she went and saw him. And he told her that all she needed was to sit in the sun, like seriously need to sit in the sun. She started sitting in the sun. And to her amazement, all her pains, and she started following a plan. He put her on a plan. And to her amazement, all the complaints that she had disappeared over time, because what? She was vitamin D deficient. It states here that the sun is God's doctor. And I'm repeating it because I want you to get it. And you know how repetition deepens impression, which brings health and strength, purifying and giving color to the blood. And we must have it. It's important that we have it. Sunlight is one of the best tonics and beautifiers of the world. Therefore, men, women, and children, one and all, should seek it as one of the great natural agencies which helps to form the elixir of life. You notice the words that they use here: nature's nurturer, the elixir of life. This should tell you just how important sunlight is. And we all take it for granted. So vitamin D favorably regulates the immune system, simultaneously improving its effectiveness at eliminating pathogens and reducing inflammation. Vitamin D is consumed by the immune system when it is activated. It is a nutrient that is metabolized at a faster rate during infection or inflammation. So whenever you're ill, whenever you are ill and you sit in that sun, it activates your immune system faster when there's an infection or inflammation, because that's what doctors do. Consequently, people with inflammatory conditions need greater amount of vitamin D. They must supplement at a higher dose to achieve healthy blood levels. Since chronic immune activation is always present in autism, autistics require higher vitamin D intake than normal people. So if you know somebody who has a child who is autistic, recommend that they put them in the sun. In regard to that, which we can do for ourselves, there is a point that requires careful, thoughtful consideration. I must become acquainted with myself. I must be a learner always as to how to take care of this building, the body God has given me, that I may preserve it in the very best condition of health. I must eat those things which will be for my very best good physically, and I must take special care to have my clothing such as will conduce to a healthful circulation of the blood. I must not deprive myself of exercise and air. I must get all the sunlight that it is possible for me to obtain. I must have wisdom to be a faithful guardian of my body. And for those of us who are here who are not Seventh-day Adventists, or those who will listen on YouTube sometime hereafter, Ellen G. White is a servant of God, a prophetess of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and God has given her insight, wisdom into a number of things. So if you have never read an Ellen G. White book, I'm going to recommend that you take up the Ministry of Healing, Counsels on Diet and Food, or any of her other books and start reading. But I'm recommending the Ministry of Healing and Counsels on Diet and Food because those are the two that speak specifically to health. Young ladies frequently give themselves up to study and to the neglect of other branches of education, even more essential for practical life than the study of books. After they have obtained their education, they are frequently invalids for life. They neglect their health by remaining too much indoors, deprived of the pure air of heaven and the God-given sunlight. Now, this is very important for us to note because we live in a society, like I pointed out before, where we get out early to go to work and some of us get out late because we're avoiding the traffic. And so we deprive ourselves of fresh air. We're locked in an air-conditioned office. And I noticed this, it causes some respiratory illnesses to come upon us. And I noticed this in my own office. So what I do is I turn off the AC and open the window. I turn the AC off and I open the window to get fresh air, especially when COVID came in and I deal with a lot of students. So I noticed I needed the fresh air. And there are times when I would just get up from my desk and walk around the compound during my lunchtime because I knew I needed sunlight. Physicians often advise invalids to visit foreign countries to get some mineral spring or to traverse the ocean in order to regain health, when in 9 cases out of 10, if they would eat temperately and engage in healthful exercise with a cheerful spirit, they would regain health and save time and money. Exercise and a free, abundant use of air and sunlight, blessings which heaven has bestowed upon all, would in many cases give life and strength to the emaciated invalid. My brothers and my sisters, these are wonderful words of life. Exercise and a free, abundant use of air and sunlight. Blessings from heaven. Blessings from heaven. And these, in many cases, would give life and strength to those who are ill. So vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin. Let's delve a little deeper. The sick benefit from sunlight. Like I said before, usually they would say you're going to live, you're going to old until them sun you, because older people are more indoors. They would take them outside and put them in the sunlight. And you're going to learn more about that as we go on. Florence Nightingale in 1863 wrote of the benefits of patients who were near windows in hospitals and got sunlight. That's another story. That's another story. It was found that patients who occupy well-lit rooms recovered quicker and better than those occupying rooms which were destitute of sunlight. And I'm telling you, it's another story, because for some strange reason, our hospitals believe in having very thick curtains at the windows, and nobody opens those windows to let the sunlight in or to let fresh air in for those who are sick. Not a story, whole different story. Okay, so here are some diseases that are related to vitamin D deficiency. So there's Alzheimer's disease, there's asthma, autism, celiac disease, cerebral palsy, chronic pain, cystic fibrosis, influenza, flus and colds, liver function, depression and seasonal affective disorder, melanoma, multiple sclerosis, muscular weakness and falls, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, Parkinson's disease, and obesity. Pregnancy and lactation, human breast milk, premenstrual syndrome, irregular menstrual cycle, renal function, rickets, jaundice, and most of us mothers who have had babies who we have had to sun for a little while. My son had a touch of jaundice, so I had to sun him for a little while when he was born, so I know that one quite well. Sickle cell disease, tuberculosis. So vitamin D and cancer. There are about 18 types of cancers most strongly linked to low levels of vitamin D. And these includes breast cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, and prostate cancer. There's also colon and rectal cancer, endometrial cancer, eye cancer, ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, lung, prostate, and skin cancers, all related to vitamin D deficiency. There's also epilepsy, Graves' disease, Hashimoto thyroiditis, pituitary gland needs, parathyroid function, heart disease, HIV and AIDS, diabetes, hypertension, stroke, heart attack, and inflammatory bowel disease. Researchers from the Moores Cancer Center at the University of California, San Diego, estimated that by increasing vitamin D3 levels, particularly in countries north of the equator, 250,000 cases of colorectal cancer and 350 cases of breast cancer could be prevented worldwide. Nature's nurturer at work. Sunlight and cancer again. Vitamin D has a protective effect against cancer in several ways. And these include increasing the self-destruction of mutated cells, which if allowed to replicate, could lead to cancer. reducing the spread and reproduction of cancer cells. 600% of women are at risk for breast cancer. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition reporting that women in Saudi Arabia who have low vitamin D levels have 600% risk of having breast cancer than women with higher levels. And the case control study analyzed data from 120 breast cancer cases and an equal amount of controls. It is important that we get our sunlight, ladies. We are at risk. The study found that Saudi Arabian women in the lowest vitamin D category, less than 25 nmol/L, 10 ng/ml, had 6 times the risk of invasive breast cancer as people in the highest category of vitamin D status, greater than 50 nmol/L or 20 ng. Vitamin D status and breast cancer in this study. Well, this is the source. That's the source where it came from. Regularly spending even regularly short intervals of only 15 minutes or 45 minutes to an hour and a half a day in the sunlight, depending on your skin color, allows your body to produce vitamin D, and having adequate vitamin D levels can drastically reduce your risk of colon and breast cancer. After today, my brothers and sisters, you cannot say you did not know this. If you did not know this before, you know it now. Let us become intelligent in disease, its prevention, its causes, and its cure. And God has given us 8 laws of health in which to follow. Causing cells to become differentiated, cancer cells often lack differentiation. Reducing the growth of new blood vessels from pre-existing ones, which is a step in the transition of dormant tumors turning cancerous. Sunlight can help to prevent cancer, plain and simple. Moderate sunlight exposure do not give skin cancer. And I have to say this twice because all my life I've heard, oh, you won't get skin cancer from the sun. And that's why most of us who live in the tropics tend to hide away from the sunlight. Lord, it's too hot. But moderate sunlight exposure do not give skin cancer. However, sunburn would increase the risk of less serious skin cancer, basal cell carcinoma, not melanoma. We need to optimize omega-3 to prevent skin cancer. One cancer research found omega-6 fats, vegetable oils like corn, soy, canola, sunflower, safflower, and sunflower oil stimulates the development and progression of a range of human cancers, including melanoma, while omega-3 fats inhibit it. Omega-3 fats, such as flaxseed and walnut, will dramatically cut down your risk of skin cancer. In a 2008 study, it is found that men have an increased heart attack risk of 2.42 times more. So men, you are at risk for heart attack 2.24 times more than us females. Men, you need to go out in the sun, go out and walk 1 hour for the day, every day. Ladies, get your husband to go walk in the sun. Women have an increased risk of 253% of colon cancer. Women, you are at risk. Get your sunlight. So vitamin D and COVID-19. Did you know that vitamin D, when COVID was keeping, because I hear it's over now, the WHO has declared it no longer a global pandemic. So, okay. So did you know that vitamin D actually helped with COVID-19? Let's learn. Patients who were vitamin D deficient were more likely to test positive for COVID-19 by 77%. And this is from David Meltzer from the University of Chicago. While 80% of 216 COVID-19 patients at the hospital, and that long name, Universitario Marqués de Valladolid, had vitamin D deficiency, and men had lower vitamin D levels than women. Men, you had lower vitamin D levels than women. COVID-19 patients with lower vitamin D levels also had raised serum levels of inflammatory markers, such as ferritin. Men, you are at risk. I can't say it enough. More than half the world's population are vitamin D deficient. More than half the world's population are vitamin D deficient. And I can see how persons who live in North America and those places that have winter, I can see how you guys can become vitamin D deficient. Because even when the sun is shining bright in the winter, it is still cold. And I don't know if you get the benefits of the sun when it is that cold, because first and foremost, nobody wants to expose their hands. Nobody wants to show their face. Everything is covered up. So I can see how more than half the world's population are vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D deficiency increases the risk of pneumonia by 80%. Vitamin D supplements reduce all types of pneumonia by 10 to 20%. So when you're not able to get the sunlight, my sisters and my brothers, please supplement. Increases bacteria, viruses, inflammation, ferritin, D-dimer levels, or C-reactive protein. Vitamin D deficiency increases the risk of all diseases and mortality, but it also increases white blood cell count. So high doses of oral cholecalciferol supplementation on SARS-CoV-2 virus. And I'm just going to ask that you take a screenshot of this. I'm not even sure if it is relevant to keep this in the presentation, but we'll look at it a little more because COVID is over this, but maybe just take a screenshot of it and you can look it over. Okay, so we can boost immune function with vitamin D. The possible role of vitamin D in suppressing cytokine storm and associated mortality in COVID-19 patients. And patients with respiratory infections tend to have lower blood levels. Vitamin D and virus replication. There are thousands of viruses around the world, and sunlight helps to kill them. Sunlight is an effective antimicrobial agent, producing 200 to 300 different antimicrobial peptides in your body that kill bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Vitamin D is an important factor for healthy immune function. This cannot be overstated enough. I've said this before and I'm saying it again. Vitamin D is an important factor for healthy immune function. A study found that people with vitamin D levels above 38 ng/ml recovered from influenza in an average of 2 days. So if your vitamin D levels are high, you can recover. Flu cannot stay with you. But, you know, it's a whole lifestyle. It's a whole lifestyle because if you're doing everything wrong and if you're in violation of all the laws of health, this will not apply to you. But if you are doing the right things, you cannot get a cold for more than 2 days. Whereas people with vitamin D levels below 38 ng/ml took an average of 9 days to recover from influenza. It prevents viral entry into the cells and it prevents excessive release of pro-inflammatory cytokines, preventing tissue damage. Respiratory sinus epithelial cells contains vitamin D receptors, and the 25-OHD hydroxylase to convert vitamin D in its active form in the body. Vitamin D is important in producing a microbial protein, cathelicidin, that kills viruses, fungi, and bacteria. Sunlight exposure, sunbathing is important. You see how many times we talk about sunlight and vitamin D and sunbathing, and it's important? That's because we want you to get it. We want you to understand. Do not run from the sun. Stay in the sun. Ensure that you're properly covered up, but stay in the sun. And vitamin D is superior and far more important to the human body than vitamin C. You see, when we get a cold, the first thing we start with is increase our vitamin C. But the studies have shown that vitamin D is far more superior. It's superior and far more important to the human body than vitamin C. Over 1 million people die every year from a lack of sun exposure, and I can see how that is possible. It is a pandemic that involves adults and children. And you know who is more prone to this? People in the nursing homes, people in hospitals. I can see how they die from low vitamin D levels, because it's not something that is given to them, and persons don't see the importance of taking them outside for some sun. So I can see this. So the question is asked, does the skin produce more vitamin D or less as you get older? And the answer is less. And so the elderly are at risk for vitamin D deficiency as much as 75% by the age of 70 years. And so you have to supplement for these persons, for your grandmother, your mother who is over 70, you have to start giving them vitamin D supplement. And that will greatly help with their health issues. So persons over 70 years absorb 25% of the sunlight they are exposed to, only 25%. Who are at risk for vitamin D deficiency? Again, the elderly, young children, the chronically ill, and the malnourished, as they are institutionalized. Just like I said, if you are in an institution where they're not taking you out for sun, they close up the windows, they have some thick drapes that no sunlight can penetrate, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna have a problem. They should be outside under the trees, laying on the grounds, in beds, in the garden, because that's where the doctors are. But you know something, brethren? For some people, this is just too simple. This can't work. It is just too simple. But you know what we need to do? Try it. Try it. Just try it. Lay out in the sun under a tree, or just sit in the sun in your backyard, wherever you're living. Sit in the sunlight in your backyard. Ensure that your hand, right, the back of your hand, and your feet are exposed to the sun. And you look at those veins that stand up to drink up the rays from the sunlight. Just do it, because I've done it several times, because I didn't know, but now I know. Those using certain types of medication, those using certain kind of medication, anticonvulsion medication, Dilantin, and steroids that interferes with the physiology of vitamin D. These persons are at risk for vitamin D deficiencies. And persons with liver or kidney failure. The obese is also at risk because vitamin D is deposited in large body fat stores and is not readily bioavailable. Persons who are dark-skinned, the high level of melanin requires 3 to 6 times more sun exposure to get the same amount of production of vitamin D. So just write in the chat for me. Are we seeing the importance of vitamin D now? For those who never heard anything that I'm saying to you before, am I clear? Are you getting it? Are you seeing how important sunlight is to your health? I still see 19, so I guess, okay, I see you. Okay, I see you too. That's right. I'm happy you're getting it. I'm happy you're getting it, because if you weren't getting it, then I'd have to go back from the beginning and start all over again and use a different approach, because it is important that we get this. There are 8 laws of health and 2 added: cleanliness and purity of life, but you have to become familiar with these laws of health. And that's why we're having this lifestyle seminar, so that if you didn't know, you know now. So metabolic disorders increases your need for vitamin D. So metabolic disorders like diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and leaky gut. If you're experiencing any of those, you need to up your vitamin D. Subcutaneous fat, dark skin pigmentation or melanin, not spending enough time in the sun. Okay, so here goes the winter season. And last year, for the first time in my whole heap of years, I spent an entire winter abroad. I enjoyed the snow, I must admit, because my husband ensured that I was out there in the snow going for 5K walks. It was very cold, but hey, when you walk over on the side where the sunlight is, it's not that bad. You don't feel the chill, but when you go over on the shaded side, that's when you get cold. So I had the privilege of spending an entire winter abroad. And like I said, that's when I took most of my vitamin D tablets, supplements, because some of the times I never left the house. There was a lot of snowstorm and I was not going out there. And I noticed that the snow tend to fall more on the Friday, just before the Sabbath. So I spent a lot of time indoors, and I recognized that it was very important, because I started getting some pains in my finger. My finger started cramping up, and I told him, and he told me what to use. And for me, I usually have a problem with my hair when I go abroad. My hair would fall out. It would just get dry and brittle and just fall out. So what I try to do is I try to ensure that my hair is braided when I'm going abroad. And I can see now, because I took vitamin D supplements. When I got back home, I went to my hairdresser. She said, "Oh, but your hair did not fall out." So vitamin D actually helps my hair, my skin. My skin was dry. I have to find a better way to combat the dry skin in the winter. But my skin was extremely dry. And so I would take, I'd eat a lot of olives. You have to become intelligent, brethren, in disease, its prevention, its causes, and its cure. And because we are practicing medical missionaries, we are family herbalists, we are now nutritional herbalists, we have to learn how to take care of us. So when I'm telling you that if you eat extra olives in the winter, your skin will not be as dry, I'm not telling you because I read it in a book. I'm telling you because I have practiced it and it works for me. So the winter season, for those who live abroad, you have to be super careful, because I can see how you can become very ill during these times. And this is another problem that we're having. This is another pandemic that we're having, where we spend more time inside the house with the little children. When I was growing up, and somebody, Dr. Ephraim or Sister Camille, please tell me when my time is almost up. When I was growing up, I would spend a lot of time outdoors, climbing trees, riding bicycle, skateboard, yes, tomboy kind of stuff. But I spent a lot of time outside. I spent a lot of time in the sun, and I was never a sickly child. We were never sick. So what we have done is we've moved our children inside because we're constantly going to work. We're too busy. We can't spend any time with them sitting outside, just observing nature and enjoying the sunlight. And so our children have come down with a lot of issues. See there, including bone formation. Young children who do not go outdoors, they suffer from poor bone formation. I saw my niece's little baby with a very bow leg. Almost, we would in Jamaica would call it bandy leg. And I said to her, take that child into the sun. Where do you get your vitamin D? I guess by now you would have guessed it because I said it like 100 times before. So vitamin D, you get it when the UVB ray or the ultraviolet B sun exposure from which you derive your most of your vitamin D3. It is the UVB ray sun exposure from which you derive most of your vitamin D3. You get it from the sun. It is best to get vitamin D from outdoors and not from a pill. And that's applicable when the sun is shining and it's not cold. If the sun is shining and it's still cold, get it from the pill. Here are some dietary sources of vitamin D. But for us who are medical missionaries and who do not indulge in meat, we will not be eating the salmon, the mackerel, the sardines, the cod liver. Well, we can take the cod liver oil. We're not taking the egg yolk, but these are some of where you can get the vitamin D for those who still eat meat. You can get it from your salmon, your mackerel, your sardines, your cod liver oil, egg yolk, fortified milk, cereals, orange juice, and yogurts. Some other dietary sources of vitamin D are not best for God's prescription. So dietary sources of vitamin D are not best for God's prescription. He actually gave us the direct sun because he wanted us to get it from there. Okay, so two types of supplements for vitamin D. The natural supplement D3 cholecalciferol is extracted from lanolin, and this is found in sheep's wool, which is the same type of vitamin D your body makes when exposed to sunlight. The synthetic form of vitamin D is ergocalciferol, and that is derived from fungal sterol egesterol. Okay, so if you're looking for a vitamin D supplement to buy, if you're looking for a vitamin D supplement to buy, this is the recommended brand, Nature's Answer. Once either form of the vitamin is in your body, it needs to be converted to a more active form by your liver, then your kidneys for your body to utilize it. Vitamin D3 is converted 500% faster than vitamin D2. And what kind of test do you need to get to check your vitamin D level? You need a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. It is a blood non-fasting test. So for those of you who live in North America, you can ask your doctor to do a 25-hydroxy vitamin D test just to test your levels. Just go ahead and test your levels to see how you're doing in terms of your vitamin D. What is the optimal range for vitamin D level? For normal range, it is 40 ng/ml and above to 100 ng/ml. Low levels is 30 to 40 ng/ml. Optimal health level is 70 ng/ml and above. Ask your doctor to give you the vitamin D test. Is it possible to get too much vitamin D from the sun only? Is it possible? I think you can answer that. It is not possible. So the body regulates and stores vitamin D from the sunlight in your liver. So just don't overdo it where your skin starts getting burned. Okay? Can you have a toxic level of vitamin D? Yes. With supplementation, when it reaches 150 ng/ml and above, effects of toxicity, frequent urination, fatigue, excessive thirst, confusion, muscle aches, nausea, vomiting, elevated calcium, kidney stones, and kidney failure. How much time does a person need outdoors daily to get an appropriate amount of vitamin D? For light-skinned individuals or Caucasian, you need 15 to 30 minutes daily. And for dark-skinned individual, you need 45 minutes to an hour and a half daily in the sun. And which hours are best to expose your body to the sun to make vitamin D? Sun exposure between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. when the UVB ray is at its highest. What can hinder UVB ray? A cloudy sky, rain, smog in the atmosphere, wearing sunscreen. So when you go to the beach, don't wear the sunscreen. Sunlight through glass, UV resistant umbrellas, and geoengineering. I can't take the sun. What shall I do? So if you have a sensitivity to sunlight, you have to avoid getting sunburn. How to avoid getting sunburn? If you have a sensitivity to sunlight, try the morning sun, the very early morning sun, and see how you can deal with that until you overcome the sensitivity. Okay, so how to avoid getting sunburn? When you go out into the sun, it is best to protect your body by wearing long sleeve. You notice how our sleeve is very long? Wear long sleeve, cover up properly. One would be cooler under a shady tree, so the long clothing acts as a shady tree. You can also wear a straw hat to protect your head if out in the sun for a long time. And that's why farmers go out with their big straw hats on their heads. Drink lots of water to be hydrated to avoid sunburn, and go on a low-fat, plant-based diet. Let everything be done in moderation and avoid getting sunburn. Some people may be sun sensitive because they are not used to the sun. Sun sensitivity due to medication they may be using, particular illnesses they may have. I remember I spoke with a young lady who had, I think it was MS that she had, and she had sensitivity to the sunlight. So I told her the very same thing I said earlier. Try to do the very early morning sun until you build up that resistance. Vitamin D deficiency. Therefore, we recommend be exposed to sunlight gradually. Supplement initially to build up vitamin D levels so you can eventually tolerate the sunlight. The sun is hot. How can I keep cool? Dressing against the heat. Protect the skin from the direct rays of the sun with loose cotton clothing that fully covers the arms and legs. In countries where the weather is very hot, clothing is loose-fitting, covering the body well, and breathable fabric can keep the body cool. The more antioxidant eaten from fruits and vegetables, the lower the risk of sunburn. So you can avoid sunburn by this very food that you eat. So here are some examples of food that you can eat to avoid sunburn. There's blueberry, blackberry, strawberries, raspberry, plums, oranges, red grapes, cherries, kiwi fruit, eggplant, garlic, onion, kale, grapefruit, pink grapefruit, spinach, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, beets, red bell peppers, and organic corn. Where was the human designed to live? Now, God took Adam, put him in the garden, and he gave him the job of dressing the garden. So humans were designed to live outdoors. And so parents, you should let your children play freely in the sunshine. Girls especially should be encouraged to go outdoors. Vitamin D is stored nutrients, and when one is not exposed to sunlight, it pulls from storage. So you need to top up the storage by sending the children outside and going outside with them, not just send them outside, go outside with them. What is a possible daily dose you need to take to increase your vitamin D? For vitamin D2, 6,000 IU daily. And for vitamin D3, 3,000 IU daily. And remember, I said earlier that vitamin D3 absorbs much faster, much quicker than the vitamin D2. Okay, so the age and the doses are below. Below 5 years old, 35 units per pound per day. 5 to 10 years old, 25,000 unit, 2,500 units, sorry. Adults, 5,000 units. Pregnant women, 5,000 units. And there's a warning. There is no way to know if the above recommendations are correct. The only way to know is to test your blood. You might need to increase the amount recommended above. Ideally, your blood level of 25 OHD should be 70 ng/ml. A 3-year-old child who weighs 25 pounds will require how much vitamin D supplement per day? For a 3-year-old child, it would be 25 pounds times 35 units per pound, 875 IU. Lack of sunlight is a leading cause of maternal and fetal deaths worldwide. So we know about preeclampsia, and some symptoms of preeclampsia is soaring blood pressure, swelling of the hands and feet. Preeclampsia is also the leading cause of premature delivery. Maternal and fetal illness and death worldwide is conservatively projected to contribute to 76,000 deaths each year. Mothers and expected mothers, you need to get out in the sun. What should we do in order to abound in health and cheerfulness? Spend much time outdoors in the sunlight and fresh air. Light promotes gladness and consequently healthiness of body and soul. Sunlight on your brain. Endorphins. There was a report in 2014 from a MG/Harvard team that UV exposure increases beta endorphin levels in the skin. So we need to get out there so that our endorphins can be activated by the sunlight. Exposure to UVB light also increases eucranic acid, UCA, in the blood. Eucranic acid itself is found in the brain. Once in the brain, it's converted to glutamate, which is a well-known neurotransmitter. Glutamic neurons, or GLU, is increased by sunbathing. So you can take care of your brain by just being outside, getting out there, getting your sunlight, and improving your mood, your addiction, your cognition, and brain development. You see how important it is? Amen. So, my brothers and my sisters, in Steps to Christ, page 68, the servant of the Lord encourages us that as the flower turns to the sun, that the bright beams may aid in perfecting its beauty and symmetry, so should we turn to the Sun of Righteousness, that heaven's light may shine upon us, that our character may be developed into the likeness of Christ. And I am sure I am at the end of the presentation. So do enjoy your sunlight. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Tanya, and God bless you too. What a powerful presentation. That was just so bright, so invigorating as we learned on the incredible benefits of sunlight. And I saw that persons have been placing questions in the chat. They are ready to have some questions answered, some comments given, and beginning with Dr. Ephraim.
Thank you so much, my sister, for that presentation. I just want to share my own testimony. I'm going to share it in a poetic form.
Oh, bless the Lord.
A poet's testimony, lack of vitamin D. Some babies are born with bones that are deformed and knees that are turned in and are not. Others have legs that are imperfect and bowed because of a deficiency in vitamin D. Mothers carrying these precious souls consume a diet that was not very whole. Somewhere along, mom became chronically deficient and baby's level of vitamin D was insufficient. As the baby gets a few months old, the parents by doctors are being told to break those legs and put them in a cast so they can be remolded now the bones are soft. This is just another one of the man-made flaws where things are done while grasping at straws. It is so important to know the cause and to provide suggestions through God's 8 laws. These poor little babies are vitamin D deficient, and a therapeutic dose or sunlight will be sufficient to make these babies walk tall with straight posture and to prove to the world that the healing is in nature. I am one of those babies, you see, whose legs were not broken, but was given vitamin D. I stand tall before you now to show you that God is true to all his vows. Thank you.
Amen. Powerful, powerful. And you know, indeed, this bow-legged condition that is fondly called bandy leg, and you know, it's almost a symbol of something special. But then we learned and we were reminded that it's a deficiency of vitamin D. And Sister Ephraim, Dr. Ephraim, your poem just underscores that greatly, and we thank you so much. Thank you again, Sister Tanya. So we have, let's see, I'm beginning from the top, where Sister Jessamine Pilgrim said, old people long ago were very wise in going out in the sun and God focused, but now we have AC, etc., and the comfort of life has mad healing. What a predicament. Let's go back to the old paths, go back to the old ways of the Lord. Let's see. Someone asked, what do you do for someone whose 2 legs were swollen with fluid retention? 1 leg went down, but for the month, the right leg is not going down at all. She's about 86. Sister Tanya, will you be able to address that?
But Sister Camille, you'd have to do an assessment on the person because you'd have to know what caused the flu. You have to do an assessment. You can't just give an answer.
That's right. A full lifestyle assessment by a medical missionary. So do get in touch with one of us and we will surely facilitate. Let's see. When you were speaking about using extra olives in your diet to help with your dry skin, being out in the sun, I see Dr. Ephraim recommends coconut oil and apricot oil for the skin. And indeed, those are good as well. Let me see. How can a person with lupus get the sunlight? I understand such people cannot take sun. Mr. Tanya or Dr. Ephraim, how can a person with lupus get that sunlight? Because persons with lupus, it is said that they cannot take sun.
Okay. If they can't get the sun, Sister Camille, then they probably will have to supplement. They can't get the sun. If they can't tolerate the sun any at all.
And then lifestyle assessment again can help to identify